pain, despair, and poverty for millions of unemployed Americans in 2021, as case numbers continue to climb, and a new, more infectious strain of the virus is spreading rapidly. And concerns the vaccines will not work on a mutation. We will enter more lockdowns and shutdowns, more severe restrictions will be imposed. This will lead to the certain demise of thousands and thousands of small businesses. Workers who will lose their jobs, and business owners who will see their dreams crushed and their homes lost to the bank. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses and all their employees out of work. Rent and mortgage delinquencies. Highest consumer debt in history. The next 3 to 4 months are going to be worse than financial markets are braced for. The US will go into a de facto shutdown again, all politics aside. Either the people will stay home, not willing to risk exposure, and/or the state and local governments will be forced by the medical community who have run out of resources and will beg officials to shut down to give them some kind of breathing room. And the Fed is already pushing for a double QE in 2021. This crisis will be used as a scapegoat for the next massive QE expansion. What the Fed is doing is absolutely destroying the economy. Take note of how many Fed speakers are really banging the table on fiscal stimulus, i.e., congressional spending bills. They're terrified that they will lose control. Especially that dropping rates and more QE is not causing companies to take down more loans, especially if the banks won't lend. See how many have floated bonds and now secondary equity offerings. All the monetary and fiscal stimulus cannot prevent insolvency, which is the next phase. That looms just over the horizon like a slow-motion train wreck. When I hear Fed governors talk about their help, I want to throw up. The Fed is the arsonist and the firefighter. The Fed rebuilt the house they filled with explosives prior to the pandemic. And filled it with even more explosives than before. Who'da thunk it? SP 500 PS ratio, Buffett GDP, Shiller Cape, mutual fund cash levels, et al. But we won't know the triggering event till after, the results will be the same. Zombies can continue as the living dead for a while. What QE did, was removing money from the economy. The goal of the Wall Street banks is to crash the stock market and take down all the pension funds. The banks are international criminal organizations. MMT is not just no growth, it is anti-growth. Instead of actually doing something and growing the economy, people just take the debt and consume it all. MMT and debt is a doom loop. The party is over. Chronic QE was already a lie. But if you keep the interest at zero and keep debasing the currency, what will happen? Inflation. Your buying power will decrease. Okay, here is a visual, just think of Venezuela and stacks of cash to buy a chicken. No toilet paper. Then we lose reserve currency status, then the vultures come in to pick us clean. The Fed is playing a very dangerous game. It is time for tightening and paying down debt for flunky wars and death. Quantitative easing or any stimulus will have no effect or opposite effect when debt to GDP is over 90%, which it is. In other words, central banks will henceforth fund the entire sovereign budget deficit, which is what MMT and helicopter money is all about. It's only a matter of time before Jerome Powell will join the club, and we expect that at some point in the next 3 to 4 months, the Fed will announce it too will double its monthly rate of debt purchases. One can argue that the creeping economic shutdowns, first at the state level and soon at the federal, have just one purpose, to catalyze the next crash and next bailout by the Fed. Is anyone paying attention to this? Is the gigantic tidal wave I'm seeing not too far out a figment of my imagination? What good does QE do when all the new money creation goes to people who already have, and none of it goes to those who actually need it? The Federal Reserve should start at the bottom and move up. Not start at the top and moving down, but only a little. The rich are just getting richer as the food lines are getting longer, and longer, and longer. Feed the need, not the greed. The rich will only save the money or reinvest it, while the poor will actually spend the money on things they need. And this will create more demand and more jobs. If the money went to the people, it would help the whole economy and still trickle up, but, no, they want it all, and they want it now. This way, they can cry for more sooner. They don't want to fix the economy. It's too late to fix it anyway. An unfunded debt of $200 trillion in the US. The national debt is claimed to be just shy of $30 trillion, but that doesn't take into account pensions, loans, social security, healthcare, etc. Interest rates at 10% would cost more a year in interest payments than the largest ever annual deficit 2020. It would certainly force the government to stop all the ridiculous social spending and even have to slash the military budget by 2/3. This would still leave the US with the world's largest military budget but much less global reach. Raising interest rates is a great idea, but we will instantly fold as a country. I'd say 10% as a possible 10-year plan. Unfortunately, other than moving a few pieces around the board, the recent actions by the Fed only continues to move back the day of reckoning. The extend and pretend illusion our economy remains on a sound footing is alive and well. Whatever it is, it will benefit them, not us. All money printed since the 80s have mostly never touched the real economy. It's been kept in bonds maturing for decades. And when the rich sell their bonds, fireworks will go off. All the noise flowing from the election and the pandemic has buried the fact our economy faces rather dire problems. I see all foreign countries that were forced to buy US treasuries during the reign of the petrodollar stop purchasing a single note of treasuries at auction. The time is finally right to put a nail in the coffin of the US and its absurd spending levels, which have allowed America to live wildly beyond its means for the last 50 years at the expense of the global population. What could rattle markets? Realizing the national debt is now over $27 trillion and going up fast. Checking historical valuations for stocks in terms of earnings and asking, where's the beef? Risks include vaccine rollout issues, new strains of the virus, presidential transition, cyberattacks, and more. The biggest risk is the one highlighted in the debt to GDP chart and the attendant size of the major central banks' balance sheets. The Powell Fed has completely capitulated, and this is anything but lost on the markets. Our central bank has signaled to a frothy marketplace that massive, at least $120 billion monthly liquidity injections will continue indefinitely. It has become paramount to Fed policy to use its balance sheet to sustain market bubbles for the purpose of spurring economic recovery. It is nothing short of our central bank abandoning its overarching monetary stability mandate. Manipulation is the word, it has too many deep incantations. The fact the market hit 30K during this pandemic is huge golden trumpet singing, was that somebody's scream, it wasn't me for sure. I'm playing the game with one hand behind my back. And it looks like our congressmen are eager to waste another $2,400 per family for splurge money. No targeted aid to businesses or the unemployed, just money for people who haven't lost jobs to buy flat screen TVs with. The real problem is that nothing will be better in 3 months. The same people calling for money now will be asking for another stimulus check in March. Merry Christmas, America. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. Many of you have asked me where they can buy silver and gold bullion. You will find in the description box the links where you can buy American Silver Eagle, silver bars, or rounds. I highly recommend that you start stacking some silver bullion for the future. This is how a zero-taxation economy with rich people and zero rules works. They inflate as a form of taxation. Since there isn't a monetary standard, every penny that they add to the money supply inflates, taxes the worker. Since workers aren't being paid more, they ultimately have their wages inflated away. Down the drain we go. Exponential debt and languishing growth that was occurring before the pandemic, or else we wouldn't have need QE, which amounts to life support, has doomed this country. We are now being distracted by a media spectacle and manufactured public health crisis to distract us from this fact. We have been living with an imminent fiscal crisis since 2008, and the ineffective means to contain it haven't changed. What else did you think the motive for the crisis was? It's to conceal the fact that nothing the bank cartel has done in the last 12 years has worked. We aren't facing an imminent crisis, we are facing imminent collapse. The bank cartel wants to make damn sure they get their cut before it all goes belly up. Of course, the only source is what wealth the 99% still have. So they proceed to inflate that wealth away. The bank cartel is buying up distressed assets for literally nothing, the money they created out of thin air. Fiat currency and debt-based economies always fail. Always. Every time they've been tried. They'll spend money and unleash the Kraken. What happens when QE stops working? We are doomed. When loans are created, the money to service the interest doesn't exist in the world. It's a catch-22 for the central bankers. Once you've let a Ponzi scheme and asset prices develop, you have to keep propping it up. When it collapses, it will feed back into the financial system. The more you inflate the bubble, the worse it will be when asset prices do collapse. The poor things just can't win. The central banks are kicking the can down the road for an almighty crash at some time in the future. Things are going to get very nasty at some time in the future, we don't know when that will be. Who cares, as long as it wasn't on my shift. Hopefully, Jerome Powell will be left carrying the can, Janet Yellen once said. In order to print the necessary money out of thin air without massive inflation, then counterbalancing deflationary pressure must be created via massive further demand destruction. Get ready to shiver in the dark eating your gruel. It all happened in just 6 months during the Weimar Republic. The USA now has a budget deficit of almost 50% of budget spending. In other words, everyone gets on average twice of what the economy can sustain. Just imagine the shit show that is coming. Europe is not much better. When politicians are given the fiat printing presses, the end result varies for 0% hyperinflation. This is going to end badly. I'm okay with all this money printing, provided the Fed can also print food, houses, cars, clothes, and precious metals into existence. Time to invest spare fiat paper in gold and physical silver. Gold and silver in physical form will be my biggest investments going forward. It's clear where this is all heading. Stocks tend to keep up with inflation until they can't. Crypto is just more fiat. Real estate is super risky. Bonds have negative yields due to inflation. Nowhere else to go. This was the Atlantis report. Please like, share, leave me a comment, subscribe. And please take some time to subscribe to my backup channels, I do upload videos there too. You'll find the links in the description box. You will also find a PayPal link if you want to make a donation. Thank you wholeheartedly to all those of you who have already donated. Stay safe and healthy, friends.